Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm so excited to have you here with me as we talk about a topic that many English learners wonder about: how to learn English effortlessly. If you've ever felt like learning English is too hard, or that it takes too much time, then this podcast is just for you. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Jason, and I've been helping people just like you learn English in a way that's easy, natural, and enjoyable. Over the years, I've seen how many students get frustrated with traditional methods, and they often feel like they're not improving as quickly as they'd like. But the truth is, learning English doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to feel like a big challenge every day. In fact, learning English can be simple, fun, and, yes. Now, you might be asking, how can learning English be effortless? Well, let me tell you that it's all about changing the way you approach learning. You don't need to study for hours every day or memorize long lists of vocabulary. Instead, you can start making small changes to how you practice English that will help you improve naturally, without feeling stressed or overwhelmed. I'm going to share with you some simple and practical tips that you can start using right away. Whether you're just starting to learn English or you've been practicing for a while, these tips will help you practice speaking and listening in a way that fits into your everyday life. You'll learn how to immerse yourself in English, make listening and speaking a daily habit, and most importantly, keep your learning fast. I want you to remember one thing: you are already capable of learning English, and you don't have to do it the hard way. The key is to approach it with patience, consistency, and a positive mindset. In today's episode, we'll explore how to make English learning a part of your life in a way that feels easy and enjoyable. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the world of effortless English learning together. Understanding the concept of effortless learning. Before we dive into the methods that make learning English easier, let's first talk about what we really mean by effortless learning. You might be thinking, is it really possible to learn something as complex as English without feeling like it's hard work? The answer is yes. And here's why. We often imagine sitting at a desk, memorizing vocabulary, and going through endless grammar rules. We may picture ourselves studying for hours, feeling stressed, and constantly worrying if we're making progress. But this traditional way of learning isn't always the most effective, especially when it comes to learning a language like English. Instead of thinking of learning as something that requires intense effort, it's better to think of learning as something that requires intense effort. Think of it as something natural and fun. This is what we mean by effortless learning. Effortless learning is about removing the pressure and stress that often come with learning a language. It's about using methods that feel easy, enjoyable, and even relaxing. Imagine that instead of forcing yourself to study for hours or feeling anxious about making mistakes, you can use methods that are easy, enjoyable, and even relaxing. Imagine that instead of forcing yourself to study for hours or feeling anxious about making mistakes, you are learning English by simply living in it. This might sound too good to be true, but it's not. In fact, it's something that many successful language learners do. Here's how you can start to think about learning English as something that feels effortless. The first step to effortless learning is changing the way you think about learning itself. Many learners have the belief that they need to work extremely hard, or that they have to memorize everything to succeed. But learning doesn't have to be a struggle. If you approach English with a positive mindset, focusing on progress rather than perfection, you'll start to enjoy the process. The less pressure you put on yourself, the more natural your learning will feel. Experience, not memorization. One of the biggest mistakes people make when learning English is focusing too much on memorizing words and grammar rules. Yes, vocabulary and grammar are important, but they shouldn't be the only focus. Instead, try learning English through real experiences. This means listening to podcasts, watching TV shows, reading books, and having conversations in English. When you're exposed to English in real situations, you start to understand it naturally, without having to memorize everything. For example, think about how you learned your first language. As a child, you didn't sit down and study grammar rules or memorize vocabulary lists. You learned by listening to your family, watching TV, and playing with friends. The more you were exposed to language, the better you got at speaking and understanding it. This is the same idea for learning English. The more you surround yourself with English, the easier it will be to pick it up. Make learning part of your daily life. Effortless learning happens when you make English a part of your everyday routine, instead of setting aside hours for study time. This might mean listening to an English podcast while commuting, watching your favorite movies with English subtitles, or even changing the language settings on your phone or social media accounts to English. These small changes add up over time and help you get more comfortable with the language. Focus on listening and speaking. A common challenge for many learners English fluently. We often feel nervous about making mistakes, so we avoid speaking. However, one of the easiest ways to learn English effortlessly is by focusing on listening and speaking. Why? Because these are the most natural ways we learn languages in the first place. When you listen to English regularly, you start to pick up on new words, phrases, and sentence structures. Similarly, when you practice speaking, you start using the words you've heard in real conversations. Don't worry about being perfect. The goal is to get comfortable with the language. As you listen more and speak more, you'll notice that it starts to feel easier and more natural. Celebrate small wins. Learning English effortlessly is not about achieving perfection right away. It's about making small, steady progress over time. Celebrate every little victory, whether it's understanding a new word, completing a simple conversation, or watching a movie without needing subtitles. When you focus on these small wins, you'll stay motivated and continue to improve without feeling overwhelmed. Consistency over intensity. One key to effortless learning is consistency, not intensity. Many learners believe that they need to study for hours to make progress. By focusing on listening first. See you in the next tutorial.